Thank you. We're going to continue along the lines of financial issues, and I want to talk about taxes. Mike, this question goes to you first. Do you think the current system of taxation in Pennsylvania is fair, and what changes, if any, would you recommend?
Well, that's a deep issue there. I do not believe that the tax system in Pennsylvania is fair on many levels. In one area of that is the unemployment and jobs. Right now, Pennsylvania has the highest corporate net income tax rate in the nation at 9.9%. If we're going to track jobs and decrease the unemployment rate, which is at 10% right now, we have to lower the tax rate for we have to lower the corporate net income tax rate. I think that's very unfair. There's another tax, the school property tax, which I think is unfair. I'm for eliminating the school property tax. That will generate more revenue for the schools, and will take that pressure off homeowners, especially seniors that don't have kids in school, and families that don't have kids in school. But the elimination of the school property tax benefits everybody. But as a tax system, I do believe we have to readdress it. Like I said, the corporate net income tax has to come down. I believe the capital stock and franchise tax needs to phase out, and that will benefit the Commonwealth by bringing new jobs and businesses back to Pennsylvania. And that's how I stand on the taxes.
Thank you. Kevin, the same question to you.
Well, in a perfect world, there would be no school property taxes. But part of the job of a legislator is looking at a piece of legislation, deciding whether or not it's something you're interested in co-sponsoring or being the prime sponsor of, because, and I am a co-sponsor of House Bill 1275, but I did so for one main reason. I know we have to have the discussion, actually two reasons, and I wanted to have standing in pointing out some of the flaws in House Bill 1275. You know, we're not just talking about elimination of property taxes for primary residents, which most of the people that I represent and that you're looking to represent, you know, they don't have vacation homes that need tax breaks. They don't have other businesses that need tax breaks. They have one primary home. The cost of House Bill 1275 is estimated to be $17.5 billion. I don't think anyone here in this audience or anyone watching at home wants to pick up that tab. And I find it astounding that during the most desperate of times, during the most difficult recession, as I mentioned earlier, since the Great Depression, my opponent is proposing to significantly increase your personal income tax, because that's where the money would have to come from. These are already desperate times. Unemployment's at 10%. We have to get people back to work. We have to make sure big business pays their fair share. When you have a loophole in Delaware that 70% of the companies plus take advantage of here in Pennsylvania and don't pay their fair share, when you have a gas industry who's extracting the natural resources here of Pennsylvania and we're not taxing them, there's no severance tax, you know, we have to visit the bigger picture and look at the people that aren't paying their fair share at the expense of the rest of us. Because if we take the Marcellus Shale and the gas industry, for example, we're on the hook for $12.5 million to provide clean drinking water to the residents in Dimock Township, to 18 homes.
Thank you. Mike, you have a minute to rebut.
I want to make very clear, I never mentioned that I want to raise personal income tax. Matter of fact, I'm adamantly against raising the personal income tax. And what's more astonishing, as a co-sponsor of House Bill 1275, you should be well aware that they want to expand the sales tax to include items such as chewing gum, dry cleaning, oil changes, which will generate more money for the schools, which will alleviate the school districts from worrying about funding and concentrate more on education, which I think is desperately needed in our educational system. And then on the severance tax, we were promised a severance tax by our legislators by October 1st. Here we are a week before election time, and we still have no severance tax. and the severance tax that my opponent wants to raise is the highest rate in those states that have gas drilling. 39 cents per cubic foot is a very high rate. You just don't do that. That's a good way to lose companies, and that's what Pennsylvania does.
Thank you. Well, since you've brought up the severance tax, we may as well move along to that question for the next question. So I want to focus on the severance tax specifically and not on the environmental impact, which will be the following question. The question right now is, do you support or oppose a severance tax? And if so, what is the appropriate rate, since supposedly 10% was not the right rate? Why or why not do you support or oppose this severance tax? And Kevin, the first response to you.
Well, I support the severance tax, and I think it should be high. You know, almost 50% of all of the cost for extracting Marcellus shale have to do with transportation. We don't have to transport it here in Pennsylvania because it's right here. This is basically the Saudi Arabia of North America as far as natural gas is concerned. And a fair tax is the tax that I voted for. My opponent maybe missed the vote that we took in the General Assembly on the Marcellus Shale severance tax, but we did that before October 1st. We kept our promise. The problem that we have is we have a majority Republican Senate who has no stomach for taxation on the gas industry in Marcellus Shale. Obviously, the House, we had the votes. We did the right thing because we realized that we have an obligation to strike a balance between a responsible gas industry, making sure that we maintain and take care of our environment, not only for today, but for the future of our children, for generations. And this is a serious, serious responsibility. And I don't want to be one of those legislators that looks back 10 years from now and is accused of not doing the right thing when we had the opportunity. Sometimes my statements may fall on deaf ears, and I might not win every battle. But I'm fighting for future generations. I'm fighting for the environment. I'm fighting to make sure that we hire qualified Pennsylvanians to do this work. There are many tradesmen and women out here in Pennsylvania that are quality employees who are already trained to do this work, and we're employing Oklahomans and Texans and Louisianians, and all their money is going back to those states. We have to get this right the first time.
Thank you. Mike, the same question goes to you, and if you would include in your response the answer to what rate is appropriate.
I do believe in a severance tax for the gas industry. At 10%, I think that's absolutely absurd. Once again, it's the highest rate in those states that have gas drilling. I believe in it to have it right in the middle. It should be about a 5%, 3.5% to 5% rate on gas. But the problem with the severance tax that Mr. Murphy has passed in the House was that they want close to 80% of that revenue to go back to Harrisburg. I think that's just absolutely wrong. I think it should be reversed. 80% of that revenue should go right back to the communities affected by the drilling. They're the ones being affected by the infrastructure. They're the ones that have to build up their emergency responders. They're the ones that have to deal with the sewer systems. Like I said, the infrastructure with the roads. And that's how it should happen. I firmly believe that they put the cart in front of the horse. We need regulation before we did taxes. On the severance tax that was passed through the House here, it didn't go towards hiring new DEP to police the Marcellus Shale. I firmly believe we need to hire more DEP to police what's going on up there. The environment is a #1 issue for me. But to add in the severance tax to have $97 million of that revenue to go back to Harrisburg, I think is absolutely wrong. It needs to go back to the communities to help them with the affected, what's being affected by them through the gas drilling.